Hey y'all, and welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be looking at a chess game that I played recently where I ended up getting into a slightly better position, but I used a lot of time and I ended up having to play very fast in the endgame. So here we go. My opponent started off the game with the move d4. I go knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, and the move bishop to b4, which is the Nimzo Indian defense, one of the most combative systems against the setup with c4, e4, and knight c3. And my opponent already goes wrong on move, well, goes wrong is kind of an overstatement, but plays a very large sideline on move 4, which is the move queen to b3, which is a move that's not really seen very often at this level, or really many levels actually, like pretty much around 1800 rapid, you kind of stop seeing this because it's just bad, and it just allows black to have very easy and simple play. I remembered my theory here, which is the move c5, d takes c5, and knight to c6, arguing that these doubled pawns are a weakness in the future, and I'm able to win them back whenever I really want to. For the moment, though, I'm going to focus on my development and take advantage of this pin. My opponent goes knight f3. I play the move knight to e4, with some ideas being maybe to capture this pawn, and there's a very simple idea. After bishop d2, knight takes d2, knight takes d2, I was actually considering playing this move knight to d4, which is an option. And the point is that my opponent can't take here because of the fork on the king and the queen, right? But I realized that this was actually not the right answer, because knight to d4, yes, it looks cool, it's a tactic, we love tactics, oh, brilliant move, yeah, but actually queen d1 helps my opponent, I thought. And if I wanted to do this, I was considering, okay, bishop c5 is just wrong because my opponent gets simple development, like a lot faster than me. And if I take on c3, I give him triple isolated pawns. I have to go back to c6. I'm down a pawn right now. I'm probably going to be able to win one in the future. But in retrospect, I was like, okay, well, I'm not able to get this bishop out very easily. And I was very unsure about the position. So I decided not to go for this. And I instead just played the simple move bishop takes c5, which is the top engine in line. And my idea is pretty easy. I'm going to put pressure on this pawn. My opponent's probably going to defend it somehow. Then I'm going to play b6, bishop to b7, and get my development done that way. My opponent goes e3. Okay, just making sure this pawn is always defended and also opening up the light squared bishop in some lines. I play the move b6, which is the plan I was just talking about. Bishop b7 is the idea. Put some pressure on the king's side. My opponent goes knight d4. And I have to think here for a little bit because there's a lot of choices. There's really only two choices. Either I go bishop back to e7, or I decide to take this pin again with the move bishop to b5, and then you have to kind of ask yourself, is a3 helping my opponent or hurting my opponent? Because in some lines a3 is a mistake, and in some lines it's good. And in this line, I decided that after bishop to b4, by the way, I did not play this move. And like at the very least a3 and bishop to e7, I was like, okay, a3 is probably an improvement for him, because in some lines white likes to push pawns on the queen side and like try to overrun black with like a majority, and I didn't want to get involved in that, and I thought a3 kind of helped springboard that. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna play bishop e7 first. My opponent goes knight to b5, which is logical. He's aiming for the d6 square. He's trying to like take control of this and not allow me to play simple chess. For example, if I play this move d5, which would make logical sense, right? You're trying to get rid of the weakness on d6. This is actually simply a bad move because this isolated pawn is always a weakness. Oh, not to mention queen takes d5. Did not see this, but yeah, queen takes d5. That would be a nice way to lose the game. But even if my opponent went like probably rook d1 here, just pinning here, bishop e6, I'm just worse. Like, I'm always just worse, even without this silly little tactic. I'm always just slightly worse, and I didn't want to end up in this position. So instead, I decided, okay, well, the point of knight to d6 is kind of to stop me from castling. I'm just going to castle now. Now I'm slightly better. And I'm like, okay, you can play knight d6 all you want. I'm not really too scared. But instead of knight d6, my opponent decides that now was the time to castle himself, and he castles long, which is not a good move. And I immediately picked up on this. this is just not a good move because I thought I've already have play over on the queen side. Look at all my pieces over here, right? Like I have 5 out of 6 pieces on the queen side. The king side is light years safer than the queen side, and I mean, I have very simple play. Rook c8. I'm gonna try and put pressure on the center. I'm gonna play something like d5, knight to a5, and I mean, this pawn is just a weakness in many lines with the king on c1. And okay, well then black is just better. So it's like, okay, if that's the point, if I really need to play rook to c8, then what? How do I do that? How do I do that? I need to move this bishop somehow, right? If I play bishop to b7, I thought that walked right into the move knight to d6, and I didn't really enjoy that. I wasn't really too fond of that, and I kind of want to keep my light squared bishop because it's going to put pressure on the pawn on the light square, right? So I decided instead of putting the bishop on b7, which is actually a better move than the one that I played, I would instead play this move bishop to a6. And the point is that I want to play rook to c8, and I was thinking that after knight to d6, I'd probably have some sort of tactic. Like I'd have some f5, maybe some queen to c7, put pressure here, put pressure on the knight, and I would be doing pretty well. My opponent, however, did not believe me and played knight to b6, knight b to d6, and I should have probably just won the game here. If I was a little bit better of a chess player, I would have won the game here pretty easily. Instead, the move I played was f5 after a minute of thought, but there's actually a lot of simple ideas here. Of course, I'm looking at this move knight a5 and queen to c7 off the bat. I didn't really like queen to c7. Like I just didn't think that this was the right move now because my opponent can always go back to b5, and I didn't really like trading here. Like I didn't like this, like I'm allowing him to play b3 at some point, but I guess a6 and I'm just winning. Yeah, calculate one move further and I just figure everything out. But yeah, I wasn't too fond of this. I didn't really understand this. Of course, the threat is now f5. Here it doesn't work because I take. Queen is defensive here. Always have some check, win the queen. Yeah, but anyway, I wasn't too happy with this. I didn't really enjoy this position. Of course, the other move is knight to a5 first, which I also considered. Of course, this is the top engine move, knight to a5. And the point is that if my opponent plays something like queen to c2, yeah, the pawn is defended. Now I play f5. My opponent doesn't really have a good square for the knight. Probably, I don't even know. I mean, g3 doesn't make much sense. c3 also doesn't make much sense because you're just going to lose the pawn. I guess put the knight on g3. Now I simply take, and I can play queen to c7 at the very least. Actually, no, rook to c8, and this is even better. And yeah, the pawn is going to be lost. Like b3. Now I can play. Man, this line is actually kind of crazy. Knight b7. I take control of this square. Yeah, that's kind of insane. And the point is, I want to play b5, put pressure on this. Like, why you put your king on c1? I'm going to exploit that. But instead, I thought for a while I played f5, and my idea was that after the knight would move, I would play this move queen. I would first, actually, now was another time I think. I didn't want to play queen to c7 now because I was still kind of concerned about this. I still just didn't like this. So I instead decided that I would take here. He would take as his rook, and I would play queen to c7 now. And now his rook is hit, his pawn is hit, and I thought I'd play knight to a5 next. I'd pick up the pawn, and I'd be doing very, very well. Which would be accurate, except for the fact that I've lost my entire advantage and 3 minutes on my clock, which is not a good thing. Rook to d2. I go with this idea of knight to a5, and honestly, in my calculations, I just completely missed the move queen to a4, and now black isn't even like better. Black is like only very, very slightly better here, and it's just not really doing well because this pawn is just well defended. He's attacking my pawn. If I take now, I thought this is just already bad, like rook d7 here. My queen is under fire. I'd probably have to go like queen to c8, yucky stuff, right? He would trade, I would probably trade the queens, and yeah, this position, I mean, I'm not too happy here. It's just equal. We have symmetrical pawns. I mean, I'm trying to win, right? I'm 100 points higher than this guy, right? So I decided, okay, well, if you're going to do that, I probably have to respond. I'm going to play this move d6 pretty quickly. I didn't really think too hard on this. I guess I did 30 seconds. In retrospect, I should have played rook f to d8. That would have been the more accurate move. My opponent goes queen to b4. I decided to play rook f to d8 now, which I thought was probably correct. This is not correct. In fact, taking now is right, which of course I looked at, but I thought, okay, this is fine. My opponent goes king to b1. And now I decide, okay, well, now you haven't defended your pawn. Okay. It's a free pawn. And I was just like, okay, well, now I'm going to just be up a pawn. I'm probably going to win the game. I'm happy. Hooray, those plus 6 points are going to be very, very nice. And then rook c2, which made sense. I thought I had to play this move bishop takes f1 here. Just get rid of my bishop with the tempo. And the point is, like, you don't have like any discovered attacks. Like, you can't play like knight to e2 because actually I can sack the queen, and this is enough material. This is actually way too much material for black, and I would be just winning. Instead, rook takes f1. I play the move queen to c5 after some thought, deciding that if he trades queens with me, this would be a very nice position. Because now my pawns are undoubled. I get the d file, and I was like, okay, this would be great for me. And I kind of like underestimated the queen to h4 idea. I kind of just like didn't believe in this too much, but this is actually very powerful. And black has to be very careful here. Yeah, black has to be really, really careful here because he's targeting my rook. He has this idea of stuff on my queen. I really, really should have moved my queen out of the way. I should have played something like queen to e5. Just getting my queen out of the way right away. But instead I lose the game here. And I decide that I was going to play rook a to c... sorry. That is the best move. Knight to c4 is the best move. I did not play knight to c4. I didn't think knight to c4 would work. But actually the point is that he's never going to play b3 because of this fork. And actually black is just winning. Instead, I played rook a to c8, and I promptly lost everything. Like, now I'm just losing. Now I'm just completely losing, actually. And rook f to c1 comes on the board, and I kind of start feeling okay, I might have messed up here. What do I do? If I go with like queen to c4, I thought he would play this move queen e7, which looked kind of scary. Actually, knight to c6, and I'm just... Wait, no, not queen e7. What am I talking about? No, yeah, knight e4. Yeah, knight e4. And he has this double stack over on my rook here. I can't take, of course, because, well, actually first queen takes e4, pawn takes e4, and he takes on c8. And this is just a losing endgame. And yeah, so I get really, really nervous here. I was actually very, very scared of like what he was gonna do. There's not a good defense. I thought I would have to like give up the c file, and then he would get to the c file, and I'd probably lose. I ended up playing queen e5, just thinking, well, I have to get out of here. And this is losing automatically after the move knight to d5, which I looked at, and I thought, okay, knight to d5, I probably lose the game, or I'm just much worse, because after rook to b8, which I thought I probably had to play, I thought my opponent would just like have like free reign, like knight e7 here, and like rook to c7 was what I calculated. And I just looked at this and I was like, oh, okay, I'm probably losing. I am. Yeah, it's over. it's over. This position is completely lost. Something easy like queen e4 here, and like knight to c6 would win the game pretty convincingly. But that doesn't happen, and instead my opponent just makes a huge mistake. g4, and black is better. Why is black better? Because now I'm able to like consolidate my position and kind of get out of the weeds. But instead of doing that, I just took, which is not good. Now knight d5 again is strong. It's less strong now because my opponent has it's less strong now because I have like some like tricks now. Like I can play g5. I wasn't able to do that before, and there's like some ways that I can survive this. Like maybe, but no, he doesn't play this either. He instead goes queen takes g4, and now I'm finally able to like solidify and consolidate my position. Queen to f5 I ended up playing because I thought I really wanted a queen trade. If I get a queen trade, I thought I would just be up a pawn, and I didn't really think that there would be any more tactics if I did this. So I decided to go for it. He takes my queen. He doesn't really have anything better because I'm also like pinning this rook to his king. There's ideas of like b5, b4 and stuff. So he takes on a5, rook to d1, and I decide, okay, I probably have to defend my pawn. I don't really enjoy what's going on here. Let's bring my knight out of the way and defend the pawn. Knight to b7, defending the pawn. I didn't really enjoy this move. I'm actually not too sure why. Move looks fine, whatever. Knight to b7 on the board. My opponent goes rook d5, g6, defending the pawn. Rook c to d2, putting more pressure. And I decided to play the move a6 to defend the square on b5 from the knight, which would have been very, very strong if you went there. And I thought my opponent was going to play this move e4, which looked very, very strong. I would probably have to take, he would take, and I would place him like rook to c6, and he has all his pieces staring at this. It's probably a draw, but I thought that maybe white could have something, because my pieces are kind of tied up. He has like he probably has like a way to bring the king in somehow, and I wasn't too sure. Maybe black is better. Computer thinks black is better. In any case, rook 5 to d4 is the move that he chooses. King to f7, because it's the endgame, we have to bring our king. He goes knight to a4. I go to move rook to c6, which is where the rook belongs anyway. Kind of defends everything now. My opponent goes a3. I play king to e6, kind of finishing my king's journey into the center of the board. Knight back to c3. I go rook to c5, which I thought made a lot of sense, because I might want to play this move d5 in the future. And if I can get rid of this weakness on d6, then I will just be up a pawn, and I'd probably be winning the endgame. My opponent goes knight to d5, though. In retrospect, probably knight to c5 would have been a better move. And the point is that I kind of control more squares now. My knight is better. I'm threatening this, first of all, and it's a little bit tricky. My opponent has to be kind of careful here, which is all I really ever wanted. But instead, rook to c5. Knight d5 makes sense, hitting my pawn on b6. I end up playing the move b5, which I thought was logical. I might be like pushing my pawns in the future. I don't know, these pawns aren't really weak anymore, and I felt pretty good about my position. h4, I play the move rook d to c8, trying to get control of this and get onto the back rank. My opponent goes h5, and he allows me into the back rank, king to a2, and with low time on my clock, with only a minute 30 versus 6:30, I make a big mistake. Here, the only way for me to make progress in the position and get like a winning advantage is one of two ways. I actually can either trade the rook. If I can trade one set of rooks, I would be just winning, because the only way he's able to make counter plays with two rooks. Or if I find this very, very like nice move, this move g5, I would be able to stop the h5 pawn, and I would just be winning another pawn. And then I would have these two outside passed pawns. Well, I guess one passed pawn, this kind of counts, but it's going to end up being a 2-on-0 in the future, and black would simply be winning the game. Unfortunately, I missed this move g5, and I instead, with low time on my clock, I simply like pre-move basically the move rook to h1. My opponent takes, I take, and now it's back to equality. Knight to f4 check. I play the move king to f7, trying to get my king out of the way. This pawn is always defended by the knight, so we can't take it. My opponent goes knight to d5, and I decide to take full control of the first rank with the move rook c to c1. And now there are some checkmating ideas, and my opponent has to be careful. Knight to c3, and black wins, like immediately. Black wins. Why? Black wins because rook a1, king b3, knight a5, and if here there's a fork, first of all, and after king to c2, we have rook a to c1 here and another fork. And black would just be winning an exchange, and black would be winning the game. But with a minute 30 on my clock, I didn't see this, and I simply went for a more concrete idea. I played the move knight to c5, and I'm threatening a checkmate in one move. Okay, pretty logical. My opponent has to do something about it. My opponent does do something about it, and for some reason, I don't see the best move here. It's obviously this. Like, this is obviously what I have to do, and then I'm just gonna be up 2 pawns and winning this game. But I don't do this. But I don't, for some stupid reason, I don't see this, and I just went knight back. Like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Come on. I spent 10 seconds on that move. I spent 10 seconds on that move. I didn't even see that the knight was hanging. I didn't even see rook takes c3, which is just like unforgivable. And yeah, but knight to b7, my opponent goes king to b2, and now I actually don't really have anything at all. King to e6 is what I decide on after a little bit. My opponent goes e4. I quickly play the move f4, trying to make sure that he doesn't get these trades, because if he can trade off these pawns, then it would just be a draw, basically. So I play f4. My opponent goes f3, and now actually black is winning. Black is only winning because of the weakness of the f pawn. And if I went for that immediately, if I go like rook c to f1, I go after the f pawn, he just doesn't have the mobility to be able to defend it. But instead of that, I went rook c to g1 because I thought my opponent was going to try to play this move, and I didn't want him to do that. So rook c to g1 on the board. My opponent goes rook to d5. I play the move rook to h3, and I blunder a fork with the move knight to e2, which would simply be winning the game almost, which would of course be bad. Instead, my opponent plays rook 5 to d3, defending the f3 pawn. I go rook g to g3, again blundering the same fork with low time, but for some reason my opponent was playing very fast now. I do not know why. He has 5 minutes on the clock versus my 1 minute, but he's playing very, very fast. Rook to f2, and now the tactic no longer exists after the move after g5, but I don't play that. Actually here, knight e2 doesn't work. Oh, because g5, and this is just a draw. Yeah, this is actually too powerful, I guess. Wait, what do I play here? Just knight f7, and he can't do anything. Okay, cool. Anyway, knight to d5 on the board. I play g5, defending the pawn. Knight to c7, going after my pawn on a6. I go king to d7. Knight takes a6, and he's returned to a material equality, but the game is winning. First of all, I play move knight to c6. I thought I was trapping the knight here because I kind of defend on the squares, and then I just completely missed the move knight to c5, something I shouldn't have missed. I go king to c7, giving my opponent the opportunity to bring the knight back into the game with the move knight to e6, but instead he does with the move knight to b3, going for some of the move knight to b4, going after these pawns and trying to get something going with his passers in the future. I play the move knight to e5. At this point, I'm just, sorry, 1 second. It was an Amber Alert. My bad. Instead, I go knight to e5. And at this point, I'm just trying to play moves very, very quickly. I'm trying not to lose on time. So when I see this move, I'm going after the pawn. I'm hitting the rook. Rook to c3. I had to play the move, like I had to move my king somewhere. I had to go king to b6 as the top engine line, just kind of defending this pawn and put pressure on this, and I'm going to play g4. But instead, I go knight to c4 very quickly because I say, okay, it's a check. I have to be aggressive. Check. Cool. King to a2. I have this move g4, which I completely missed here, which really I shouldn't have missed either because this is a pretty simple move. The point is he can't take because the rook on c3 is hanging, and I'm just going to be winning this pawn. But unfortunately, I didn't see that. I saw it a little bit later, though. I played the move king to d7, trying to get out of the way of this pin. I didn't like it very much. Knight to d4, I put my knight on e3, which is my main idea, trying to stop this move knight to f5, disconnect the rook, and try to win the pawn in the future. And my opponent here, not here, sorry. My opponent goes rook to d3 here, which is just a mistake because of g4 again. And now this is like a different point. After f takes g4, I am simply going to play this move. Wait, what? Sorry, what? Only move king to e8. What? What does that even accomplish? I don't understand chess. Instead I play king to e7, which I thought made sense, and I'm just kind of getting my king into the right square. And here my opponent goes a little crazy. He decides that he's a little bit faster. He just thinks that he's going to win the pawn race, and with 4.5 minutes on the clock, my opponent spends a very little amount of time, I believe, and takes on b5. He spends 15 seconds on a losing mistake with knight takes b5, and he just doesn't understand that he's just going to lose the race. And okay, if you're going to move your knight out of the way, I'm going to take the pawn on f3, and my pawns are simply faster. Rook takes f3, rook takes f3, knight takes on d6, He's up a pawn, but rook to f2 check, king to b3, and rook to f1 is what I decided to go for, trying to stop this idea of the pawn advancing with ideas like here, forcing him to make a couple tempi to push the other pawn forward, b5, g4. He has to go a4. He can't go b6 right away because of the move rook to b1, I thought. And I would be picking up this pawn, and I would be, wait, would not be picking up this pawn. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, I'm still winning somehow. These pawns are too strong. Okay, that's a little scary. Instead, he plays a4. I go g3. He goes rook to d2, ready to sacrifice his rook for the pawn. I go g2 anyway, because I'm like, okay, well, I have 28 seconds on the clock. I have to play fast. If you're going to give me a rook, I'm going to take a rook. Knight to f5. Knight takes f5. Rook takes g2. And f3. Another very nice move, hitting the rook, leaving my knight to hang, and I'm going for the mate. Rook to b2. I play knight to d4, king to c4, and knight to e2, trying to disconnect this rook from my pawn and win the game. b6, I decide here I'm going to play the move f2 first. He can take here, but then I'm going to give this check, and I'm going to promote, so he can't do that. And he goes with the move b7 to try and queen at the same time. Rook to c1, king b4, f1 equals queen. 17.6 seconds on the clock. I have no idea if I'm going to be able to survive this game, if I'm going to be doing anything. I think that I'm better because I'm first to give the checks, but I'm really not sure, and I'm just going to play b8 equals queen, queen to e1, king to b5, and I realize in this position that he's just going to be chased on the board. He doesn't have anything. Knight to d4 check, king to b6, rook to c6, king to b7, and queen to a5. And my opponent runs out of checks. He has no checks with the queen, and mate is unstoppable. And here my opponent spends a little bit of time trying to collect himself, realize that he's losing, and he plays the move rook to b5, and queen to a6 is checkmate on the board with 11 seconds on the clock. This game, I believe I played like the last 50 moves with 2 minutes on my clock. Check here. Yeah, this is move 33. 2 minutes. Here we go. Let me check the exact number. Here's kind of where it got around there. Move 31, move 30, and to move 76. I played with 2:30 on my clock, which is kind of intense. I really should not have spent so much time early in the game, and yeah, but at the end of the day, I won, and that's all that really matters. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys found this entertaining, instructive, all of the above. If you did, remember to like, subscribe to learn what YouTubers tell you to. And yeah, that's it. Good evening and good night.